Okay. All right, so just a um, couple of reminders. So tutoring. Let's see. I'll respond to that here in a second. So tutoring, just a reminder that I offer it, okay? Mornings and afternoons, preferably afternoons, so I don't have to get up earlier, okay? But all you gotta do is just message me, okay? And am I sharing my screen yet? Okay. Yep. All you got to do is just message me, come with specific questions. But yeah, so if you want any extra help, Unit 2 vocabulary, you do not do circadian rhythm and below. Okay. So just get rid of those. If you've already done them, just save it for later, save them for later. The Unit 2 vocabulary quiz, next class. We'll do it during the asynchronous time. Okay, 30 questions, 22 minutes. And then the Unit 2 exam is on Friday, 65 questions, 57 minutes, 50 questions from Unit 2, 15 questions from Unit 1. Okay, and study guide is posted, and you all are actually going to work on the study guide in groups during the asynchronous time. 45, right? Okay, so any questions about any of that? Okay. All right. Let's get going then. I'm doing pretty good. Gone over synchronous by like a couple minutes, but so last class we talked about two of the four lobes of the cerebral cortex. Cerebral cortex is that outside layer of the brain. Okay, outside layer of the brain, the wrinkly layer of the brain. All right, and it does vote all the words in the vote, or is it? Why would the vocab quiz be only circadian rhythm and below if I told you you didn't have to do those? It's all the other words. You can just delete circadian rhythm and below from the list. So each hemisphere of the brain, the two halves of the brain, right, divided into four lobes each. So frontal lobe up front, okay, contains the prefrontal cortex, which is abstract thought, planning, judgment, personality, etc. Okay, and then it has the motor cortex back here, which is motor movement. Okay, sending motor signals down to the rest of the body to move. Okay, so frontal lobe, judgment, planning. I mean, Samra, the definition is, you mean for the quiz? It'd be like like I might say in the limbic system if it's like one of those things. Okay, all right. So judgment, planning, and personality and motor movement. Parietal lobe sits behind it, sits at the back top of your head. Most of it is association area. All this back here. Association area is area of the brain that deals with perception, that deals with taking sensory information and giving it an understanding. So like when you smell something, and you just say like, ooh, that smells good. That's association area that took that smell, and then kind of decided like whether or not you thought it smelled good or not. Okay. The rest of the somatosensory cortex is the rest of the parietal lobe is the somatosensory cortex right there, which deals with touch sensation from the rest of the body. Okay, so interpreting touch, and then association area. And you can see here they are, they're right next to each other. The more sensitive a body part is, the more motor control you have over a body part, the larger amount of the brain it is dedicated. All right. Any questions there? All right, now the other two are real quick. Going back to the back of the brain back here. Okay, sitting way down here at the way back is what is called the occipital lobe. Okay, the occipital lobe main function is processing vision. All right, main function is processing vision. You can think of it as being as occipital kind of sounds like optical. Okay, or I had another one last class and I forgot what it was. In each lobe, there are what are called cortexes. Cortexes deal with specific motor and sensory function. Okay, in the occipital lobe, you have the primary visual cortex back here. This is where, so whenever we see something coming into our left visual field or our right visual field, okay, that light information triggers a neural impulse right here, okay? And then that neural impulse travels down the optic nerve, okay? Travels through the sensory switchboard on each side. What's the sensory switchboard? The thalamus, yep. And you can see how we're contralateralized here, okay? And so travels through there, and then the thalamus sends that neural signal back here to the visual cortex, where we can then perceive whatever the neural image. So that's why if you like hit your head really hard, like the back of your head, you might like see stars, okay? Or your vision might go black. Like people can go blind from damage to this area. Your eyes can work perfectly fine, but if the area of your brain isn't working fine, then you can't perceive anything. Okay, so main thing you need to remember with the occipital lobe is vision. Okay. Oh man. All right. Lastly, temporal lobes. Okay, the way you can remember these are temporal lobe. It is right by your temple. Okay, so it's right around in here, right by your temple. And then what's right next to your temple? Your what? Your ears. Yep, your ears are right next to your temple, and the auditory cortex is involved, or the temporal lobe is involved in processing sound. Okay, so we hear something, triggers a neural message, and then we perceive it in the primary auditory cortex. Hearing is the only one of the senses that is not, well, it is contralateralized, but it's actually both. When you hear something in your right ear, it is actually processed in your right hemisphere, not like all the other ones, which are the opposite. Okay? Wernicke's. Yeah, I'm going to go over that. That's on the next PowerPoint. Yeah. Okay. All right. Are there any questions there? Okay. If not, then we can go ahead and we can move on to the other PowerPoint. Okay. It's called Unit 2. Okay. It's called Unit 2, Day 6. And then it's really long, but it's on the date. It's today. It's on whatever date we're on. Okay, I'll give everybody a sec to get that. I'll get some water. All right, so we've already mentioned it, but each hemisphere of the brain, like the right and the left hemispheres, are slightly different. They both have a couple of different functions. All right, one of the main ones that you need to know is left hemisphere for most people. About 90% of right-handers, and I think about 75% of left-handers. For most people, language is in the left hemisphere of the brain. Okay? Linguistic areas are left hemisphere. So we have two of them that you need to know. You need to know what they do, and you need to know what it looks like when something goes wrong with them. So back here on the back edge of the temporal lobe, connected to the auditory cortex, which is right there. Okay. Connected to the auditory cortex is what is called Wernicke's area, or Wernicke's area. This area of the brain is involved in speech comprehension. So, like your ability to understand what others are saying. And then, so what we do is we process what somebody else says, and then we come up with a meaningful response to whatever it is they are saying. Wernicke's area is involved in that, in understanding and responding meaningfully. Reading partially. There's another area back further in the brain, back here in the visual cortex, called the angular gyrus, that they think is involved in like the actual in the in like when you're reading like understanding what you are reading. It's like a combination between the two. Okay, so once we understand what is being said to us, and we formulate a response, all of which happens here in Wernicke's area. Wernicke's area then communicates with an area in the left frontal lobe called Broca's area. Broca's area is involved in the physical production of speech. Okay, so you can see how it's connected to the motor cortex right here. Okay, it is involved in being able to physically speak. So right here is where you understand what somebody's saying, formulate a response, and then here is what controls the muscle movements in the face and the tongue, allowing you to talk. Okay? All right. Any questions there about those two? Now, aphasia, this word right here, aphasia is any sort of impairment of language. Has anybody in here had like a grandparent who has had a stroke? Okay. Anybody had a grandparent that's had a stroke? No one? I find that hard to believe that nobody in what class? Last class we had like 5. Okay, or huh? Wow, she had a stroke did she live? There we go. Okay. All right. Does anybody else know, maybe not even your grandparents, know anybody that has had a stroke? Okay. Did Connor did he lose some of his speech ability? Okay. All right. Brittany, you said your friend did. Is that who was? Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay. So strokes are most common in the left hemisphere of the brain, right? And they seem to affect these language areas, okay, a lot. Wernicke's aphasia is when people who have Wernicke's aphasia, they can speak perfectly fine. Like their speech is fine. They are what's called fluent. Okay. What gets messed up is what they are saying. Okay. So people with fluent aphasia or Wernicke's aphasia can speak fine, but it's just gibberish. Because this is the area of the brain that not only helps you understand what other people are saying, okay, but it helps you speak meaningfully. Okay, so people with Wernicke's aphasia oftentimes don't really understand what other people are saying, and then they also can't put together a meaningful response. And because it's understanding and they don't understand, they don't realize that there is anything wrong, okay? Because it affects their thought patterns as well. So they don't notice that there's anything wrong with their speech because they've just lost that ability to make things meaningful. Okay, so here is an example. There's a video. Okay, so there you go. There's Wernicke's aphasia. Okay. So you can see he like in the end he kind of understands a little bit right there at the end, but for the most part he does not have any understanding of what she is saying, and also doesn't understand that what he is saying doesn't make any sense. Okay, so there's another video if you want to watch that. The other type of aphasia, which is more common, I think, is what's called Broca's aphasia. Broca's aphasia is when, all right, so you have a stroke here, Wernicke's aphasia. Broca's aphasia is damage to Broca's area. Now, Broca's area is involved in the physical production of speech. So with Broca's aphasia, people with it can understand other people, they can understand what people want to say, and they know what they want to say, but they just simply can't say it. Like they just can't get the words out. Kind of like, to be honest, like kind of like stuttering. Okay. They just can't get the words out, even though they know what they want to say. They can write perfectly fine. They just can't speak as well. What's interesting is people who are people who are deaf and use sign language, if they have a stroke in Broca's area, okay, that they will not be able, they will have a hard time signing. They'll have a hard time signing if they have a stroke in Broca's area. They'll know what they want to sign, but they just can't do it because instead of controlling the person's muscle movements in the mouth, this area right here starts to control their muscle movements in their hands. Same thing. What you watch the video on the on phantom limbs. Same idea. Okay. And people with Wernicke's aphasia who sign language will use sign language can sign perfectly fine, but it's gibberish. It's just signing and but like it doesn't make any sense. All right. So what, Dominique? Cerebral palsy is that's a muscular disorder, I believe. I guess people with cerebral palsy sometimes have a hard time talking as well, right? Yeah, that would be, it is probably some sort of deal with degeneration of something wrong with the neural connections coming from Broca's area to their, yeah, because isn't that what Walter White's son has in Breaking Bad? I think he has cerebral palsy. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh, the actor has it in real life as well. Okay. I didn't know if they had just done that. I've only seen like the first couple episodes. All right. Here's a video of somebody with Broca's aphasia. You can tell that he knows what he wants to say. He just can't say it. All right, so there you go. You can see that guy knows what he wants to say. He just can't physically get it out. Um, what do you mean? It's the reputation. It's the repetition of words. I don't know what you're talking about, but that's not what a stutter is. But you repeat certain phrases because I mean, huh? Um, yes. Okay. All right. I see. I see what you're saying. I thought you were more talking about like there's some stuff with like where people will repeat phrases over and over. I see what you're talking about. Well, usually with a stutter, um, and if you want to, we're not going to watch it, but this girl kind of has more of what you're talking about. But usually with a stutter, like the way that I stuttered when I was younger, is I sometimes can't get I like physically cannot say like certain syllables, uh, especially when I'm trying to read out loud. I sometimes it would literally be like that's, and I'm not sure. I would imagine there is some aspect of Broca's area that is malfunctioning with stutters as well. That's my guess. Yep. Okay. All right. Anybody else have any questions? Broca's aphasia can get better. It can get better through therapy. Wernicke's aphasia usually does not. Okay. All right. Last thing, plasticity. Okay. Brain plasticity is the brain's ability to reorganize itself after damage. Okay. If there is an area of the brain that is damaged, okay, other areas will take over. Exactly. Yeah. Why did the guy start feeling why would he feel it in his hand, in his non-existent hand, when they rubbed his cheek? Yep, exactly. Yeah. So when he lost his hand, okay, when he lost his hand, there were no more signals coming up from his hand. And our brain doesn't want to waste anything. It doesn't want to waste an area, like just say, like, oh, well, this area is useless now. So those areas, face and hand region, right next to each other. Okay. And he started to, like, basically the facial region of the sensory cortex started to take over the region where the hand, where he felt stuff before in his hands. Okay. There's what is called, that should be an E, neurogenesis. Neurogenesis is the production of new neurons. Some areas of the brain can develop new neurons, some cannot. But that's where stem cells come from. Okay, so to finish up with this, we're going to watch a little video. Anybody have any questions on plasticity? We're going to watch a video. This is about a girl that has what's called Rasmussen syndrome, which is where you have severe seizures in the right hemisphere of the brain. And what they decided to do to help her with her seizures is do what's called a hemispherectomy, which is where they went in and they removed the right hemisphere, remove the right hemisphere of her brain. All right, so remove the outer layer of the right side of her brain, not the limbic system, not the brainstem, just the cerebral cortex. All right, and you're going to see what happens, what her brain does almost automatically. You're also going to see there's the neurosurgeon who did this is pretty famous in another area. So I'm going to see if anybody recognizes him. Okay. Oh, crap. Does anybody know who Ben Carson is? Yeah, you wouldn't necessarily guess. But who is he? Yeah, he ran for president. Um, he's now, I believe, the head of housing and urban development under Trump, which makes sense. And he also has really weird beliefs about the pyramids. So, all right. Okay, so yeah, no. Other than, as I said, she had like she has a little bit of paralysis on the left side of her body, but other than that, like her basically her left motor cortex was just like, all right, we got to take care of everything now, and it does. Yeah, only it said like they said after 10 days of after removal, she was walking, which is crazy. Okay, so does anybody have any questions about any of that stuff? No, I mean as they said, the only lowered functioning was she has a little bit of paralysis on the left side of her body, since the right side of the brain controls the left side of the body. But